Good morning, everyone. My name is Hivi, and today I'm gonna share with you on Dell Cyber Recovery solution that can actually help your organization, how it can help your organization to protect your business critical data from cyber attacks such as ransomware or malware itself. So without further ado, I will proceed on to the presentation. So today, all of us know that the whole world is being, affected by cyber attacks, right? What are the most dreadful cyber attacks that we are seeing today? Ransomware. And if you look at some of the news that is going on around the world on a daily basis, there are many big organizations getting attacked by ransomware. So, just want to make a few examples of, it doesn't matter if you are a big organization, you are a small organization, no matter how, some of these companies, they will actually get affected by the ransomware. Let's look at, SolarWinds, Colonial Pipes in the US. Once they've got attacked, the so-called the oil distribution around the country was disrupted for 2 to 3 days. And then we talk about Garmin. Garmin is also affected by ransomware as well, and many more, right? We don't need to go to these names. These are big companies, some of them are even tech companies, yet they are still getting attacked by ransomware. And it's very funny in a way, very worrying in a way for all of us, because, from one of the cyber attacks research, security company research, we are seeing in year 2021, every 11 seconds, there is a cyber or a ransomware attack that has occurred, right? And over there, over on the right-hand side, you can see, whichever industry you belong to, it will cause you the damages, the financial damages, whether is it from reputation, services loss, fine, recovery, all those will total up to an estimated in the numbers of millions, right? Before I came into this presentation, I actually spent a few minutes to to Google up on ransomware landscape in Vietnam. I was very interesting. It was interesting numbers to see that, in year 2021, I think one of the research company actually estimated the cyber attack loss that Vietnam has to go through came up to about $1 billion US, right? So that's a quite big number and quite worrisome for a lot of organizations, which is why all of us should take some measures or strategy to how to deal with this kind of ransomware cyber attacks. Because of the whole world is going through a lot of cyber attacks, such as ransomware, etc. I just want to share a bit that even White House in the US actually issued a White House memo to all the business leaders within their jurisdiction to tell them to protect, their company data against the threat of ransomware. So one of the advice that they actually urge those organizations to do is very aligned to what Dell has been providing to our customers since 2015. So one of it is make sure you back up your data, your system images, your configuration, test them, and keep the backup offline, which is separated from your production environment. And this is what our cyber recovery solution do, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more in the next couple of slides. So what is actually fueling, why we are getting so much of the ransomware attacks or cyber threats today is, there are a few motivation, techniques, and there are the goals, right? So if you see on the screen here, there are actually 6 cyber threat actors. So, but when we look into the cyber threats or cyber attacks, 90 to 95% of them falls under these two categories. Crime, where the reason why they attack you is to want to get extortion for financial gain. That means I encrypt your data. If you don't pay me, you lose your data. So they want financial gain. The second one, what we see is very, very hard for any of us to detect today. What we call it the insider attacks, right? Why it's very, very hard to detect is because insider attacks, maybe they want to attack you because of financial gain, but sometimes maybe not. Maybe they are not happy working in the company, and that's why they just want to do something funny within the organization itself. And the reason why it's very, very hard to detect insider attacks and prevent insider attacks is because maybe these people already have access to some of the system itself. They have privileged access to the system. It could be someone from the HR department that already have access to the HR software and HR servers, and she or he is not happy. On the last day of her tenure, she just decided to run a malware or ransomware files within the server itself. Or it could be someone from the IT department that purposely disables certain security measures to allow penetrations of the cyber attacks coming into the organization. So this is very, very hard for any of us to be able to detect. And if you look at the third to sixth one, which is espionage, hacktivism, terrorism, warfare, these are typically state-sponsored events, and very rare we see this happening. Okay. So security is very, very hard for all of us, right? So if let's spend 1 minute to look at this slide over here. So I'm sure when you look at this, you'll be able to see these are mostly security solutions that is available in the market today. Whether is it a network firewall, web application firewall, or it could be antivirus, cloud security, etc. But spend a minute and think about, earlier I talked about some examples, right? Some organization, they are big, very, very big organization. I am very sure that most of us have part of this solution in our environment today. But how come they are still getting infected by ransomware or cyber attacks? Because security is very hard, like what I mentioned earlier. Cyber attacks are getting smarter and smarter. They have evolved. They are now able to bypass some of the security that you have put in place. And also, earlier I talked about the insider attacks, right? Because these are only your perimeter defense. If there's an insider attacks, very likely, no matter what you put in front of it, because you are attacking from within the organization itself, this would actually fail, right? And that which is why cyber recovery solution is also a way to be the last line or the first line of defense when all security products within your organization fails itself. And we talk about financial gain. Now, what happens, right? Those cyber attacks or ransomware, they are designed. They know that if they infect you with a ransomware, the whole point of it is to making sure that you are not able to recover your data. If you are able to recover your data, you won't be paying them the money in order to get your data back. So they have changed the codes, changed the algorithm, changed the attack patterns, that the first thing when it comes to your network today, the first thing they will target would be your backup infrastructure. From the admin perspective, they will try to get the credentials because these are the privileged access. Then if you have your backup server, they could possibly encrypt your backup catalogs, which means you are not able to perform any recovery. And also your backup targets, places that you store your backup data, it can be encrypted by ransomware as well, which means it's not readable and you are not able to recover your data as well, right? So this is something that you have to take note of, that moving forward, potentially, backup infrastructure will be the first point of target when any cyber attacks or ransomware comes into your environment. And let's spend a minute to imagine, right? If you get infected by ransomware today, what are the options you have? What are the options? What can you do, right? So from my perspective, or some of the customers as I spoke to, they have sharing with me, PB, I only got two choices, right? One is I pay the ransom, but paying the ransom, there are a few challenges as well. Because when you are infected by ransomware, most of your services is down. You want to bring your services up as fast as possible so your customer will be able to access your service, right? But when you pay your ransom, depending on how much data they have encrypted, it will take time to decrypt your data. So, time, if it's a lot of data, time means money, and it takes longer time for your service to go up. And the next one would be the cost. Are they gonna ask you for X billions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars? Are you gonna pay it, right? And one other very important thing is when you decided to pay them, and they will think that this is a real life example. They know that you are willing to pay for your data. It will be a repeated attack. Next year they will come and attack you again because they know you are willing to pay the money, right? So they will go for it. And sometimes data are not fully decrypted, and in certain countries it is illegal to pay the ransom to get your data back, because in certain countries they have no terrorist ransom payment, and this kind of attacks is considered as a terrorist kind of attacks. So that's what are the challenges if you decided to pay ransom to get your data back. The other way would be, a lot of us will be thinking, yeah, I have a backup of my data. Let me recover from the backup. So recovering from the backup also have a few challenges that you have to think about, right? So let me share some of the points to you. If your whole production environment is already infected with ransomware, how do you know your backup infrastructure is trusted? How do you know the backups in your backup infrastructure is not being manipulated, is not corrupted, right? And the other problem is, if your backup infrastructure have been corrupted, or your backup catalog has been corrupted or encrypted, right? Even though you have those state drives, you are not able to recover because your backup server wouldn't know, doesn't have the index, doesn't have the metadata to recover your data from the tape. And one of the most important, you might be telling me that, oh, my backup server is okay, it doesn't have any problems. But my question to you is again, how do you know which backup sets or which day of the backup data you should recover? Because in a real life example, most of the time we will recover the most recent copies. And this is a customer's experience, that they have recovered the most recent copies. Few hours down the road, the ransomware payloads get activated again, and all the servers get corrupted again, and they have to try again to recover from backup data 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, until they don't experience that kind of recurring attacks again. So, which is why it's very important to have a cyber resiliency strategy and a cyber recovery solution itself. So I'm just gonna stop here for like a minute or two to let Ha to share a bit more in your language, because I think this is quite important. Ha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Phoebe. Vâng, xin chào các anh chị, quý khách hàng nhé. Thì Hà muốn, vì bạn nhìn nó bằng tiếng Anh ấy, thì Hà sẽ cập nhật lại, tóm tắt lại những ý chính bằng tiếng Việt đi, để cho chúng ta có thêm thông tin. Đặc biệt nếu mà trong trường hợp mà mình cần thiết thì để cái cuộc trao đổi của chúng ta nó mang tính hai chiều nữa. Thì ở cái phần 1 bạn Hivi bạn ấy có chia sẻ mấy cái ý chính như này. Thì thứ nhất là xây dựng khả năng ứng phó cho các cái rủi ro ở trên không gian mạng ấy, thì là nó là một cái chiến lược tổng quát. Đây. Thì tức là các cuộc tấn công ở trên không gian mạng thì đang diễn ra là ngày càng phức tạp và với tần suất là ngày càng cao. Đấy, các doanh nghiệp tổ chức thì cũng đang phải chịu những cái tổn thất chi phí có thể lên đến là hàng triệu đô như bạn Nguyên chia sẻ ở ban đầu để khắc phục những cái hậu quả về các cuộc tấn công ở trên không gian mạng cũng như là cái sự mã hóa dữ liệu. Đấy. Thì đặc biệt là mọi người sẽ thấy là có chính phủ Mỹ gần đây thì cũng có khuyến cáo các cái tổ chức và doanh nghiệp là rất cần phải có những cái phiên bản sao lưu dữ liệu cho những cái loại dữ liệu quan trọng, cũng như là những cái cấu hình ứng dụng của những cái phần mềm là đi kèm. Đấy, và chúng ta sẽ phải cần kiểm tra định kỳ xem là những cái dữ liệu đấy còn sạch và còn khôi phục lại được không. Đấy, và đồng thời đấy thì chúng ta sẽ cần phải cất giữ những cái phiên bản sao lưu đấy ra riêng một nơi riêng biệt mà ít kết nối mạng ấy. Trong tiếng Anh thì người ta hay dùng là từ backup offline ấy. Thì một điểm nữa là mục đích tấn công ở trên không gian mạng thì rất là đa dạng, từ mục đích là tống tiền này, cho đến gián điệp doanh nghiệp này, cho đến khủng bố này, hay là cho đến chiến tranh phá hoại. Đấy, nhưng mà phần lớn thì nó sẽ rơi vào hai cái tình huống, đó là lấy mục đích là tài chính, tức là mục đích về yêu cầu là trả tiền chuộc, và mục đích thứ hai là mục đích là nội gián phá hoại từ bên trong, hoặc là gián điệp từ là bên trong. Đấy. Và điểm cuối là gì? Trong cái phần trình bày thứ nhất là các hệ thống sao lưu dự phòng thì ngày càng trở thành mục tiêu tấn công mã hóa của các tin tặc, bởi vì những tin tặc người ta hiểu rằng cơ hội tống tiền sẽ có xác suất thành công cao hơn khi tổ chức hay doanh nghiệp không thể khôi phục được dữ liệu sạch từ những phiên bản là dự phòng. Và khi việc mà chúng ta trả tin tặc tiền chuộc để gọi là mở dữ liệu ra thì là hành động đấy là không được khuyến khích, vì nó sẽ càng làm cho tin tặc tấn công chúng ta nhiều hơn và nó lan rộng hơn nữa. Thì đấy là những cái điểm chính của phần trình bày của bạn Hivi trong phần 1 nhé. Okay, so I just recap your main points and you can continue with the second part.
Okay, thank you, Ha. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We'll take the time to address it later on or during the Q&A sessions. So why do we need a cyber resilience? Why do we need to have a cyber resilience, right? And what it is? Cyber resilience is a strategy. It's a very high-level holistic strategy that includes the cybersecurity standards, guidelines, people, business process, and technology solution. So let's use one of the very widely used cybersecurity framework, which is that's been adopted by almost all the organizations around the world today, which is the NIST cybersecurity framework. And NIST cybersecurity framework comes with 5 pillars, right? Identify, protect, detect, response, and recover. So let's look at the 5 pillars over here. Identify, protect, detect, response, and recover. Remember the slide that I showed you regarding the security solutions, where you can see all the security solutions in a way. So most of those solutions that you see, actually most of them are focusing on identify, protect, detect, and response. So they are focusing on that, and very, very little of them are focusing on recovery. So our Dell Cyber Recovery solution actually helps you to focus on recovering in the recover pillar, right? so that in the event of a ransomware that has attacked in your environment and all the 4 pillars from identify, protect, detect, respond fails to help you to prevent that attack from happening, we are here to help you to restore your affected system and services as fast as possible to bring your business back to operations. So this is where our focus is, right? And I just want to share a bit on how our solution is very relevant today. It's because of all these regulatory bodies that has been sharing, that has been giving up, has been recommending to the customers or the organizations around the world. So I just gonna share a few over here, which is the first one, like what we talk about, the White House advise their companies, the organization, to ensure that your backup system is not connected to the business network. Gartner recommends them to have an isolated recovery environment. Singapore Computer Emergency Response Team, it's actually telling you to, it's important that the backup data is stored offline and not connected to your production network. Australian Cybersecurity Centre says daily backup of all your important data must be stored disconnected from the production network. FBI says the same. Hong Kong Banks of Association is saying the same as well. And that is just having an air gap backup data storage wall, right? And also when it comes to ransomware, having the air gap wall is not enough. You also need to have the intelligence to be able to tell you how to find the good copy of your backup data, because you might be backing up data that already be compromised by the ransomware. So Gartner says finding a good backup copy data is very important. NIST says that you need to be able to identify the correct backup version in the event of ransomware. National Cybersecurity Center says that you should only restore a backup that you are very, very confident that it is clean, right? So this is one of the few key things that you need to take back and think about it. If it happens to you today, are you able to identify the good backup to recover or not? So I just want to spend a bit more time over here to relate to us. Why do we need a cyber recovery solution, or what we call it a cyber recovery walk? The reason why we need it, right? So this example, I'm just gonna go through something that happens to us on a day-to-day basis, right? So let's look at the example. Like today, all of us, we stay in, we have our own home. And of course, I'm sure in our home, we have our valuable items, right? It can be our gold bar, it can be our jewelry, it could be our passports, or anything that we think is very important to us or valuable to us. And how do we protect our valuables inside our home from external threats like thieves or robbers? We have external prevention, right? We have make sure our gates have been padlocked so no one can come in. Windows are properly secured with grills. We have security CCTV to monitor the perimeter in case you want to see what happened. We have dogs and security people to patrol our place, right? But this is just focusing on external people coming into your house, right? But what about internal threats? People that already have access to your home. What do I mean by that? If you have a cleaner that comes in on a daily, or some stay-in cleaner or come in bi-weekly, this cleaner or this person would have access to everywhere inside your house, right? So how are you going to protect your valuables from that? Or maybe your family member, you would have family members as well that have access to your house. Probably they have keys coming into your house, your dogs probably recognize them. And how are you preventing them from stealing your valuables in a way? So very practical, when we want to protect both against both external and internal threats, we buy a safe, right? Today we put a lot of safe. What do we do with the safe? We put all our valuables inside the safe, and then we hide the safe. So none of these people know where you put your safe, right? We isolate it, you see? And then we secure it. We make it more advanced. We need two-factor to open the safe. We arm it with alarm, and we make it fireproof, right? So in case of anything happens, fireproof, my safe, my valuable data are still inside the safe, and I can open it and take all my valuable data. So how do we relate it to data centers, right? How do we relate it to data center? And what is the most valuable item in our data center? Our data, of course, right? So, and how do we protect our data centers from external threats like hackers? Like very clearly earlier, that particular slide, we talk about the antivirus, the firewall, the IPS, the IDS. But these are just external prevention, right? But again, like what we talk about, these security solutions you have probably doesn't prevent internal threats. What do I mean by internal threats? You could have your users that is very innocent, that receive an email that contains a malware, and without proper knowledge or looks interesting, double click on it, or accidentally run a thumb drive that is already infected with malware. And how do you prevent that kind of situations, right? Or what I can tell you is that internal attacks, people that have privileged access to the systems, they can probably go to the data center itself, disable some of the antivirus, firewall to allow the cyber attack to be able to penetrate it, or they can just run the malicious files inside your data center itself. So what makes us very different? So how does Dell help you to solve this external and internal when your external threat prevention fails, and at the same time solve your internal threats problem? We help you to build a cyber recovery wall. Okay, we call it a cyber recovery solution, or a wall for your data. So what do we do with it? We isolate this wall from your production network. Okay, so no one knows where it is. So your internal threat people, very unlikely to be able to go in and do something to it. We make data that backup data that you store inside this cyber recovery vault immutable. So no one can make changes to it. No IT admin or security admin can go in and, hey, I want to delete this backup data. I want to do this. They can't. Okay. And the most important part is the intelligence piece, where we are able to tell you that, hey, the backup data that comes into the vault today, there is a problem. Looks like it's a suspicious file with some malware in there. It could be a potential ransomware. Please look into it. However, don't worry, if this data set that you're coming today, it's corrupted, you have the backup data from yesterday, which is clean, that you can recover the data itself. Okay, so this is how we help our customers to protect the reason why you need a vault, to protect your data from the ransomware, cyber attacks or ransomware attacks. So, from Dell Technologies perspective, we have started this cyber recovery solution since 2015. And until now, we have made a lot of significant changes, advancement, and we are supporting to the cloud as well, right? So I think one of the first few customers that we have, it actually is coming from Vietnam as well. So, kudos to Vietnam, for we having these solutions in place. So when it comes to a trusted recovery, right? When you want to recover your data in the event of a ransomware attack, how can Dell, or what should you look for to be able to build a trusted recovery, right? Or a cyber recovery solution? So there are 3 I's. The 3 I's that you need to remember is, first, like what I mentioned, isolation. You need a solution that can help you with the isolation of your to isolate the vault, so that when you want to recover the data, you trust the infrastructure within the vault itself, that the infection that is happening in production does not contaminate the data inside the vault. Okay, that's the first I, isolation. Immutability. You trust the data inside the vault has not been tampered with, right? No one can go in and do alteration, changes to the data inside the vault, which give you the immutability. The third point, which is the very important point, which is intelligence, where you trust the recovery so that you know when I want to recover this data that has been hit by ransomware, I know this backup data that when I recover, it is safe, it is clean, and it wouldn't have the payload activated again, you know, few hours down the road. So you can bring back your business as fast as possible. So from a high level perspective, I just want to show you how the solution looks like. So today, if you look at the screen, most of you have your production environment and you have your backup environment as well, your backup infrastructure. Typically, what you do today is at the end of the day, you do a backup. And if you want to recover, you will restore those data from the backup. What if there's a ransomware in your production environment and it has infected your backup infrastructure and you are not able to know which backup data to recover, which means you will fail your recovery. So let's look at what Dell actually get to offer, help you with this, right? So what Dell actually do is we help you to build the cyber recovery vault, which is isolated from the production network. So what we do is when you already back up your data in your backup infrastructure, we will do an automated operational air gap and we will sync those data from your backup infrastructure into the cyber recovery vault. Once the data has been synced into the cyber recovery vault, we will cut off the network so the cyber recovery vault is hidden from your production network. No one knows where is the cyber recovery vault, right? And then what we do is we make a copy of the data that we have synced into the vault. We apply the immutability over here, where we lock the data that has come into it. And what happened next is after we have locked the data, we use the intelligence part of the solution to analyze all the data that the backup data that comes into the cyber recovery vault to tell you this data is clean and this data is not clean. So let's look at an example. If we have so-called, you have backup a ransomware data, when we do the synchronization to the cyber recovery vault, and then we make a copy, we make a lock of it, and then we will analyze it. The analytic engines will tell you that, hey, this backup data that have been synchronized into the vault seems like a bad copy, contains some ransomware, malware, etc. This file has been infected. But don't worry, this is the clean copy that you can use to recover the data back into your data center or your production environment. So this is how, from a high level perspective, how the solution works. So I'll stop for a minute or two to allow Ha to explain this critical point to you in a layman way. Yeah. Ha, over to you.
Okay. Hey, let me open it. Rồi, thì ở cái mục 2 bạn Hivi bạn chia sẻ thì là tại sao doanh nghiệp hay như các tổ chức là chúng ta cần phải xây dựng khả năng phòng chống tấn công ở trên không gian mạng. Thì thứ nhất thì bạn sẽ thấy rằng là việc xây dựng khả năng ứng phó với các rủi ro ở trên không gian mạng là một chiến lược tổng quát, tức là đòi hỏi là cả về con người, quy trình và công nghệ nữa. Thì cái Viện Quốc gia về tiêu chuẩn và công nghệ của Mỹ ấy, tức là NIST đấy, thì họ có đưa ra một cái cơ chế khung hướng dẫn đó là một cái khung hướng dẫn cho các tổ chức cũng doanh nghiệp về cách mà xây dựng một hệ thống an ninh dữ liệu trên mạng với 5 lớp. Thì bao gồm là có tên là thứ nhất là lớp xác định rủi ro. Đấy, lớp thứ hai là lớp bảo vệ các cái tài sản số. Đấy, lớp thứ ba là chúng ta phát hiện ra các cái xâm nhập vào tổ chức. Lớp thứ tư là trước những cái xâm nhập đấy thì chúng ta phản ứng như nào. Đấy, là lớp gọi là response đấy. Và cuối cùng là lớp gọi là lớp phục hồi sau khi mà bị tấn công. Đấy, thì là lớp recovery. Thì giải pháp mà PowerProtect Cyber Recovery của Dell thì là nằm ở trong cái lớp thứ 5, ta có thể là lớp bảo vệ cuối cùng cho doanh nghiệp và tổ chức, nằm ở lớp phục hồi. Ở trong đấy thì PowerProtect Cyber Recovery thì sẽ gồm có 3 cái đặc tính chính là giúp cho doanh nghiệp là có khả năng phục hồi được dữ liệu khi mà bị tấn công mã hóa. Ở điểm thứ nhất là gì? Dữ liệu đã được sao lưu ra ấy, thì là tách biệt riêng khỏi cái dữ liệu chính hay là dữ liệu sản xuất. Đấy, cái đặc điểm thứ hai là dữ liệu đã được sao lưu ra rồi thì sẽ không thể sửa hay là xóa được. Đấy, vì là người ta có cơ chế là mỗi những cái tệp tin được sao lưu ra là sẽ khóa luôn ở cái thời điểm mà được ghi vào cái hệ thống sao lưu đó. Và đặc điểm thứ ba là gì? Là có cơ chế thông minh, ta sử dụng cái công nghệ là trí tuệ nhân tạo để luôn để nhanh chóng xác định được là những cái phiên bản dữ liệu nào là sạch trong trường hợp đấy để chúng ta có thể là khôi phục về. Bởi vì mọi người hình dung là khi mà một tổ chức doanh nghiệp phát hiện ra rằng là hệ thống mình đã bị tấn công thì không phải có nghĩa rằng là cái mã độc nó xâm nhập vào cái cơ chế của mình là ngày 1, ngày 2 đâu. Có thể là cái mã độc đấy người ta nằm rất là lâu ở trong hệ thống rồi. Thì một điểm rất quan trọng mọi người lưu ý là làm sao mà xác định được là phiên bản dữ liệu sao lưu nào là còn sạch để sử dụng mà khôi phục. Thì đấy là những cái điểm chính ở trong cái phần trình bày thứ hai của bạn Hivi. Okay, so you can go on with the next section.
Thank you. So how are we able to detect this ransomware or insight from the backup data, right? It's because we have this analytic engine we call a cyber sense. So every time when data has been synchronized into the cyber recovery vault, the cyber sense engine will scan all these data and will generate analytic statistic points. We'll have the analytics of the point. And then once we have those statistics, we will actually perform the analysis of those data that we have scanned to see if there's any attack that has been occurred on the data or not. So this process is being repeated every time new data has been synchronized into the vault. And if there is any suspicious files has been found or malicious file, you can go into the investigate mode where forensic reporting and analysis tools will be made available to you to find all those corrupted files and diagnose what type of ransomware is hitting your environment, so you know how to address those kind of how to clean those environment in a way. So CyberSense is the one that actually analyze. And how does it analyze from your file perspective, right? They analyze from your file metadata to the document metadata to the document content itself. And all this analytics is done fully on-prem. So when it comes to security, you don't need to use the cloud to help you to analyze any of these data, okay? And let's look into the workflow. How does it, what happens if something like a malicious file or ransomware has been detected inside the vault itself, right? So first of all, the system will send you the attack vector notification to alert you that, hey, the data that has comes in has the suspicious files, or it's a bad files that coming in. Then next, what it does is it will give you a list of those files that is detected, which is corrupted. And then it will also tell you which user account owns these files and which servers are storing these files and which executable is causing these files to be this way, right? So this is very important for us when we do forensics cleaning. But the most important part is it will tells you, hey, this is the last good copy of the file you can use to recover it prior to the infection. So how does it look like? It will be something like this, where the CyberSense report will tells you the last good version of the files and the backup set you require for recovery process. So this will help you very quickly to identify which backup data that I should recover in order to overwrite or to bring back the data prior towards the ransomware attacks. So again, why cyber recovery build trust? Just to recap on a few things, it's because we provide the best solutions in the market today, where we make the data that you store inside the vault immutable, and we are compliant with certain regulatory body. If you need to meet those regulatory compliance, we are better because our cyber recovery vault can protect your data from insider attacks that I emphasized earlier on. And it also supports multiple backup software vendor as well, such as Commvault, Net Backup, IBM Spectrum Protect, and of course our backup software is the better ones, right? And the best of it is we give you an automated vaulted air gap, to isolate the vault from the production network. Without the automation, you probably need to hire someone at certain time to plug in the cable and plug out the cable at certain timing, in order for the synchronization to happen. We make it fully automated. And the other one would be, the best one would be the ability to give you the full content indexing with the AI and machine learning analytics to tell you which of your backup data is bad and which of your backup data is good. So when it happens, you can, when disaster happens, you can recover confidently. So you might ask me, what are the data that I should put inside the vault? So from the best practice perspective, you don't put everything inside the vault, right? If you look at the example I have earlier, in our home, we only put our gold bar, something valuable, inside our vault. We're not gonna put our furniture, we're not gonna put our TV, we're not gonna put, our plates inside the vault because those are very easy to replace. But our gold bar, our passport, our date of birth certificate is something that we have to put inside the vault. So it comes to your industry as well, right? So over here, you can see for example, healthcare industry, you need to put in your patient's record, your billing system, your scheduling appointment system as well. From retail, your point of sale, your inventory, your shipping, your customers detail. Manufacturing would be your plant manufacturing scheduling, your ordering system, your inventory, or any intellectual property that you have. This is what we call the business critical data that you put inside the vault. So besides that, you also need to put in critical rebuild data. What do I mean by critical rebuild data? Because ransomware, they might encrypt your IT infrastructure as well, such as your Active Directory. Once they encrypted your Active Directory, I believe almost all systems will not be accessible, even though they are not encrypted. So, which is why, we are suggesting to our customers like yourself to consider, besides business critical data, infrastructure critical rebuild data have to be put inside the vault as well, such as your Active Directory, your security certificates, your DNS records, your networking configuration, your storage configuration, any intellectual property that you have self-developed, certain codes, etc., your host and build tools, any important documentation, whether it's from HR, management, or some DR run book, customers, database, etc., you have to put inside there as well. So just take note of this for your consideration when it comes to cyber recovery solution. So with this, I'm actually at the last slide over here. Why PowerProtect? Why Dell PowerProtect Cyber Recovery? To help you protect your data from ransomware attacks, right, or cyber attacks. So we are the few points over here. We are able to help you to create that physical and logical isolation with an operational air-gap data vault from unauthorized access, which is very aligned to what all the regulatory bodies from White House, FBI, or Gartner, they are recommending. We give it immutable with multi-layered security to protect full spectrum of threats, including insider attacks, right? And we are a cloud enabled in the event that you want to explore moving to the cloud or having the solution into the cloud. We are able to help you on that as well. The most important part is the intelligent piece where we can help you to have a very confident recovery and a very quick recovery as well. And the last but not least, we have been in the market for more than 5 years now with thousands of customers today. So with this, I'm just gonna pass it to Ha. I'm done with my presentation. So Ha, I'll just pass it over to you for you to do a quick recap on the ending, and then we can move on to the Q&A.
Sure. Thì phần cuối thì bạn Hivi có nói là về một cái phần mềm rất là quan trọng được đi kèm vào trong cái bộ giải pháp PowerProtect Cyber Recovery. Thì phần mềm đấy có tên là CyberSense. Đấy. Thì phần mềm CyberSense này là được sử dụng trong cái giải pháp này là để làm gì? Nhất là để liên tục kiểm tra cái tính toàn vẹn và tính sạch đấy của dữ liệu được sao lưu vào. Đấy. Và phần mềm sẽ quét nội dung và quét như là các cái trường dữ liệu của từng cái tin được sao lưu vào để xác định rằng là cái tin đấy là có bị thay đổi một cách âm thầm hay là bị một cách cơ bản không. Đấy, khi mà một tiệp tin ví dụ ngày hôm qua là có chỉ để là 1 mê, nhưng mà hôm nay thì phát hiện ra tiệp tin thì nó đang tăng lên là 10 mê rồi chẳng hạn, thì đấy là một cái chỉ báo cho người dùng rằng là đang có một cái sự mã hóa hay là một cái sự tấn công mạng nó diễn ra ở trong cái môi trường của mình. Đấy. Thì phần mềm CyberSense đấy là sẽ luôn luôn là kiểm tra, cứ có tiệp tin đưa vào là phần mềm nó quét. Đấy. Thì nếu mà một doanh nghiệp, nếu mà một giải pháp mà không có những phần mềm tương tự như là CyberSense thì chúng ta sẽ cần phải làm một cách rất là thủ công. Trong trường hợp mà chúng ta phát hiện ra rằng là ví dụ hôm nay là phát hiện là chúng ta bị mã hóa, thì chúng ta phải tìm lại các cái bản sao lưu từ 1 ngày, 1 tuần, 1 tháng, thậm chí cả là 6 tháng trước, và chúng ta phải dò trên các cái phiên bản sao lưu theo thời gian đấy, tìm được là cái bản sao lưu sạch để chúng ta là khôi phục về. Đấy, thì đây nếu mà làm như thế thì như bạn Hivi bạn có chia sẻ là cứ phải rút điện, rút cáp ra rồi cắm cáp vào, rút cáp ra để và cắm cáp vào để đảm bảo là không có cái truy cập của internet trong quá trình mà khôi phục ấy. Và thì cái việc như thế thì nó rất là tốn kém, từ cả về nhân công lẫn nguồn lực như là thời gian. Đấy. Thì có 3 cái giải pháp mà gọi là mọi người thấy là good, better and best đấy. Thì cái giải pháp tốt nhất và được khuyến nghị nhất là cái khả năng khôi phục dữ liệu ở một cách là tự động và xác định được nhanh chóng là bản sao lưu nào là bản sao lưu sạch. Để tiếp đến thì là các cái ngành công nghiệp thì hầu như là tất cả các ngành công nghiệp người ta đang xây dựng cái chiến lược bảo vệ cái dữ liệu quan trọng của mình rồi, từ y tế, ngân hàng, bán lẻ, bệnh viện, chính phủ. Đấy. Thì một trong những cái bước đầu tiên để mà trong cái chiến lược xây dựng này thì khách hàng phải rất rõ ràng trong việc là xác định xem là những dữ liệu nào là thực sự là quan trọng. Ví dụ như chúng ta có cả 100 TB dữ liệu ở trong doanh nghiệp mà chúng ta bảo tất cả 100 TB đều là quan trọng, thì cái đấy thì cũng có thể đúng, nhưng mà đổi lại thì là chúng ta sẽ cần phải lại có chi phí nhiều hơn đấy, để bảo vệ cho cả dữ liệu đấy. Nếu mà chúng ta xác định được trong 100 TB là chỉ có tầm 30 TB là quan trọng. Đấy. Ví dụ như là hồ sơ của nhân viên này, hợp đồng của nhân viên này, rồi các cái bí mật về nghề nghiệp này, các cái thiết kế công ty ví dụ như là sản xuất ô tô chẳng hạn, mà người ta có những cái thiết kế mẫu mới thì đấy là bí mật nghề nghiệp, thì người ta phải xác định những cái dữ liệu đấy là quan trọng. Thì khi mà bước đầu tiên đấy là chúng ta phải xác định là dữ liệu nào là dữ liệu được thực sự quan trọng và cần phải được bảo vệ. Và dữ liệu quan trọng thì không chỉ là bao gồm là dữ liệu của người dùng, của doanh nghiệp, mà cả những dữ liệu liên quan đến những ứng dụng cơ bản như là ứng dụng như là Active Directory chẳng hạn, là trao cho quyền ai được vào làm gì. Đấy, thì chúng ta cũng phải bảo vệ những cái gọi là hạ tầng công nghệ như thế. Rồi cuối cùng thì là giải pháp PowerProtect Cyber Recovery của Dell thì đã có mặt ở trên thị trường là trên hơn 5 năm nay rồi, và có hàng nghìn khách hàng là đang sử dụng. Đặc biệt là đã được một cái tổ chức là Shelter Harbor là chứng nhận là đây là một trong những giải pháp đạt tiêu chuẩn gọi là Cyber Vault của Shelter Harbor. Thì các bạn cũng hình dung là tương tự như việc là chúng ta đạt chứng nhận tiêm đủ là 3 mũi đấy, để chống vaccine bây giờ ấy. Đấy, có người tiêm 1 mũi, có người không tiêm, có người tiêm 1 mũi, có người tiêm 2 mũi, có người tiêm 3 mũi. Đấy, thì mình hiểu là cái Shelter Harbor này là một cái tổ chức tương đối là uy tín ở Mỹ, chuyên để phục vụ cho các cái nghiệp đoàn là tài chính ở Mỹ ấy, thì là chứng nhận là đạt chuẩn. Đấy, thì đấy là các cái điểm chính của phần trình bày cuối cùng của bạn EV trong cái bài ngày hôm nay.